So for for transformer models, we're going to be using ChatGPT, which is OpenAI's chatbot platform. To get here, you can either go to Google and type in ChatGPT, which it should be the top link. And if it doesn't bring you to this landing page, then go to the address bar and type in openai.com/blog/ChatGPT. It should bring you to this page. Once you're here, you can click try ChatGPT, and that will bring you to a page that lets you type it. It looks like a chatbot. If you don't get to this page, sometimes they'll ask you to log in before doing this. You can use the same login as your DALL-E account. It's owned by the same company, so the accounts work together. And once you get to this page, then you can type in a prompt. So ChatGPT works very similar to DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and Midjourney. The more details you write, the better. And you can also add intent or perspective by adding more keywords. So for example, we're going to write an article about flowers. So we're going to start with a basic example. And with a basic example of write me an article about flowers, you can see it's starting to write something about description, the features of a flower, and types of flowers. So this is the baseline use of ChatGPT. It can give you general knowledge and a huge breadth of knowledge. And then as you create, as you like figure out how you want to frame it or like what you're trying to get out of this AI, then you can start shaping it to be more similar to your use case. So now let's say we want to write an article in 300 words about the use cases of flowers with phones. So as you see here, like adding more keywords will change the response from ChatGPT. Here now since you introduced the keyword thorns and the use cases of flowers, now it's talking more about why flowers need something like thorns, as well as the medical properties, how it's useful for humans. So now if we change it to something like 50 words, and from the perspective of President Obama, this also changes the response from ChatGPT. Now you're writing from the perspective of President Obama, and it's also much shorter in 50 words. This is sort of an example of using ChatGPT to generate a unique piece of work from the perspective of another person. This person could be alive, this person could also be dead. But it reads in the information from the internet in order to create a working response that might seem correct. So if we wanted to also redo this and maybe doing it for somebody that's dead, we can do the perspective of Steve Jobs and change this to 100 words and add another clause that says, but also include information about roses. This will change the prompt to also have the rose keyword and talk mainly about roses since it has thorns. So not only can you write articles about flowers, but you can also write blog articles. So if you have a blog about delivering flowers to work, you can write a blog about this. And it looks like it comes with a lot of knowledge. and it has a lot of keywords already contained. So this is a good way of generating content for a website or like a web store. That covers the text generation portion of this course. Stay tuned for the code generation. So this is the last section of the transformer model portion of this course. And we're going to be covering code generation in this section. So going back to ChatGPT, which is what we visited in the last section, we can go ahead and create a new chat box, which you can create up here in the top left. And we will add the keywords write me in code as well as a language of our choosing in order to get code generation to come out. So we are going to try to do something simple as in parsing an address or a phone number. So we can write me code to parse an address from a text file. I wrote text phone. Sometimes ChatGPT has issues and will crash, so you just have to create a new chat or reload it. So the major keywords here are write me code and then the prompt of what you want it to do. So here it writes a piece of code that is functional Python, and explains what it's doing. So this might not necessarily be exactly what you're looking for, because for example, you might not necessarily want Python, but in first Python. So we can add another keyword in the language that we choose. So like, for example, we can use JavaScript. And the cool thing about LLMs, this looks like great JavaScript. This looks pretty readable. Even it writes in Node.js style. So let's change it. And the cool thing about ChatGPT is it remembers context. So now we can ask it, can you write that code in C++? And it will take the code, or the context of the previous conversation and then modify it using the updated prompt. So this is also valid C++. It looks like it has a regex from before. And this is using standard regex search, which is the valid C++ function. Maybe we can even try something a little bit esoteric as, maybe even like Perl. So it knows how to write most programming languages from the wealth of information already on the internet. And once it gets to the regex, we already know that it's working. We can stop generating. Now let's try to update that code to also include a phone number. So, now you can see that it's generating address and a phone number. So the takeaways from this lesson is make sure you have the keyword, write me a piece of code as well as the language specified, and make sure you address the question as many details as possible. The rules of generative AI still hold. You still need to provide as many details as possible in order for the AI to know what to generate. It's only as good as information that's presented. So that's it. This is the end of the transformer section of our course. Now let's try generating some ideas using ChatGPT. And let's say we're tasked with a prompt of needing to write a blog article for our e-commerce brand. And our e-commerce brand sells course and automatic watches. And we don't really know what we want to write, so we're going to use ChatGPT to generate some ideas to help us create an article for our website. So let's open up ChatGPT and get started. If you aren't on this page, you can go to chat.openai.com. And once you're logged in, you should be presented with a page that looks like this. So let's go ahead and send a few messages to prime the AI. And priming is sort of training it to provide a more specific answer based on what we're looking for. So in this case, we want the AI to act as a assistant for generating ideas. So let's write that specifically. You are an assistant meant to help generate ideas about writing blog articles. And let's go ahead and send that. So now we primed the AI and they are very good at helping us write articles about watches. And let's go ahead and ask it a question. Help me create some ideas for blog posts for my e-commerce website focused on selling watches. Now, once we send this, it'll start presenting a few ideas that we can use in order to write a blog article. So here it provided 12 ideas, and we can go through them. A timeless elegance, a guide to classic watch styles, choosing the perfect watch for every occasion, the art of watch collecting, building a timepiece collection. I like this third one. So let's go ahead and expand on this. Can you expand on the idea for a blog article about, and then let's quote the article. Now, once we send it, it will expand on the idea and start building out what this blog article might look like. So we have a paragraph of introduction to watch collecting, starting your collection, defining your collection goals, learning the language of watch collecting, so on and so forth. So this is a pretty long bullet point. And let's go ahead and hone this into more. My audience seems to be mostly people in their early 20s, so they don't have a crazy amount of disposable income. So let's go ahead and start brainstorming an article about creating your collection under $2,000. Can you help me create a blog article about creating your first watch collection and keep the total cost under $2,000? Now we are just honing in on this idea, and we're taking our initial prompt and we're just driving more into it. And with every follow-up prompt, we're becoming and getting the AI to deliver a more specific answer that is what we're looking for. So now it's giving me more information. The title is Your First Watch Collection Style and Substance Under $2,000. Introduction, setting a budget, defining your style, the versatile dress watch, everyday elegance, and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of bullet points. Now let's try to make this a little bit more succinct. It's a bit shorter. Now it's taken the context of our previous prompt, and now it's shortening every part of the blog post. And this is starting to look good, but a little bit bare bones. I'm going to ask, can you make it a bit more verbose and provide a couple watches that might be good for the article? And now we're just continuing on our journey of creating the blog post by honing in and querying the AI based on the knowledge it already has in order to get a blog post that we can use for our website. So now I asked it for a few examples, and it did provide a few examples like the Seiko SKX0007, Assisted ProMaster Diver. So this is now something you should look out for. There are times where the LLM will hallucinate and will create words or objects that don't actually exist. I know Seiko is a real brand and Citizen are a real brand, but some of these watches might not exist. So this is your job to go take this and drop it into Google to see whether these watches are real. And if these watches are real, then you can go ahead and continue working. Otherwise, you might need to make some changes to the blog article. So now this is starting to look really good. Let's go ahead and take a copy of this and drop it into our Google Docs. And voila, we now have a decently sized blog article that I can use for our website. Now we just have to make some minor find adjustments, and then double check that all the brands are legitimate. But this is how you can use ChatGPT to brainstorm and explore ideas for generating content. So now to take a break from generating text, I'm going to show how ChatGPT can be used to transform text, proofread, and update existing bodies text. So I'm at ChatGPT, and if you're on this page, you can go to chat.openai.com. And once you log in, you should be presented with a screen like this. So first, I'm going to go ahead and prime the AI and say that you are a helpful writing assistant that can update, proofread, and revise blogs, emails, and other writings to be more professional and polite. So now with this message, I'm priming the AI and sort of telling it what the objective is that I'm looking for in its responses. So let's go ahead and grab a poorly written email. So this one is poorly written because of several things. They use, "Oh my God, it's terrible," which is not very professional. This is definitely something between two friends. And they also use "peace out," which is also not typically used professionally. So let's go ahead and ask it, can you proofread this email and make it more polite and professional? And I'm going to add 2 enters to split up the prompt with the email. And I'm going to go ahead and send it. Now with the response, the chatbot will create an email that has the same meaning as the previous poorly written email, but is more polite and approachable. So here it removed the "peace out." It replaced "sincerely." It entirely removed the "oh my God, that's terrible." And it starts it with, "I hope this email finds you well." So this is a revised version of the previous email that is much more polite, and we can use this immediately to do professional relations and send to whoever we want to send it to. So another thing that we can do is we can actually transform it to be more casual. So let's say we take the previous context and ask it, can you make it more conversational yet professional? And now with the previous context of the email, it can revise the previous email that was poorly written to be more conversational, casual, but still professional. So here is an example of using the revising and proofreading capabilities of LLMs to revise emails in a professional setting. Now let's say you had an article that was written, but it was poorly written and you need some proofreading. So you can go ahead and take that article. I have an example here, and I'm going to go grab this and post this in the LLM. I'm going to ask it, can you summarize and proofread this article to be more professional and accurate? So I'm going to go ahead and write that prompt and add the article below it. Once I send it, it will summarize it and then proofread it. So since I'm adding 2 components to the prompt, I'm both getting a summary and a proofread version. So here you can take the summary to get a high-level idea, and then you can get a proofread version that is more professional and more accurate. So here is an example of using an LLM to do proofreading and revising. Now we're going to try summarization of complex articles using LLM like ChatGPT. And for all intents and purposes, we're going to use ChatGPT for this lesson, but you could use any other chatbot like Bard or Cloud. And to get started, let's go to chat.openai.com, and you'll be presented with a screen like this. If you haven't logged in, just log in and you should be able to get to a page like this. So let's go ahead, and I have a sample commercial lease agreement, which is a complicated legal document between a landlord and a tenant. And I'm going to take a section of this lease agreement and paste this into the chatbot and ask it, can you summarize this commercial lease agreement in simple terms? And I'm going to add the section in quotes to let the chatbot know that this is an excerpt of a contract. So now it's going to summarize it with different parts of the lease agreement. It looks like it takes every paragraph and makes it its own bullet point. And then it states that the lease terms start on December 1st, 2023 and end May 31st. This looks correct based on the information given, which is the terms of the lease as well as the commencement date. It has the rent as well as late fees. So now we just have to double check everything, make sure everything looks correct. And then there's a security deposit of $20,000. It looks like that is correct. And then taxes and extensions. So this looks pretty good. And then let's go ahead and ask it, can you make it even simpler? Imagine I'm a 5-year-old. So now we can even make things simpler and change the frame of the response. If we want to make it more complicated, we can also make it more verbose. But in this case, I want to make it simpler to complex to understand complex documents. So once the AI responds, sometimes it takes a little bit longer under high load, in which case we might have to restart the response. So let's go ahead and take the copy of this and refresh. Go back to our existing chat and then just type this in. So now it takes the pre-existing context and makes it simpler. Let's go ahead and try a different prompt. So let's create a new chat bubble and go into, I have an earnings report for Apple computers, and I'm going to go to a section where I don't really understand what's going on. Let's keep on going down past the financial statements. Let's go ahead and take this section. I don't really understand what is happening, so let's go ahead and type it in. Can you please summarize this section of Apple's 10Q in 2023? So I'm going to go ahead and take this chunk that I copied and then paste it in quotations, as well as take the quote and paste it at the very top. So now it summarizes this information. It tells us that Apple, as of April 1st, 2023, has $2 billion, and it has different bullet points for every paragraph. This looks like a pretty good summarization. This is still a bit wordy for me. Let's go ahead and ask the LLM, can you make this simpler? Imagine I don't have any sort of financial background. So now it simplifies it even more based on my clarifications, and it assumes that I don't have any sort of financial background, so it makes it even more approachable for me as an end user. So this is an example of how to use ChatGPT and LLMs to simplify text. Now we're going to integrate OpenAI into an app that we can write, and I'm at OpenAI.com, and you should be greeted with a page like this. If you aren't on OpenAI.com, just type in OpenAI.com on the search bar, or search OpenAI on Google, and this should be one of the first links that pop up. So once you're here, just click on the Developer tab on the top and go to Overview. And when you're here, you'll be greeted with the screen that gives you some options on how to use OpenAI's software. So the app that we're going to be building is going to be based on text completion. So all you have to do is go to text completion. And once you're here, you'll be greeted with documentation on some use cases on how you can use text completion, such as classification, generation, conversation, and transformation, and so on and so forth. So now that we're here, we're going to need to create a API key. And we can do this by going to Personal on the top right and then clicking View API Keys. And then once you're here, just create a new secret key. I'm not going to do it on screen because that would give away my secret key. However, once you create it, you'll get to copy it one time and then put it into an application. And the documentation is very simple. So let's say we're building an app for classifying data. We can use the OpenAI Python library, which is here in the Libraries tab. And all we have to do is install the OpenAI library using pip and then create a completion API call. and pass in the API key. So once we complete that, then we should get a response, and then we can use the data in our application. So let's go ahead and try this. And let's go ahead and open CMD. And we're going to install OpenAI using pip. And running the OpenAI install command should quickly install the OpenAI library. And this also creates a CLI, which is how we're going to run the OpenAI software now. And I'm going to go off screen to create an API key. So let's go here and create a key. And then I'm going to set it as an environment variable. I'm doing this off screen to maintain the anonymous, keep my secret key anonymous. So we just have to set it for our environment, and we can set it as OpenAI API key. So now that we have it set, now we can run this CLI. And to run it in the CLI, all we have to do is copy this command. And how this command works is it calls the API, so we call the completions.create, and we use this model, which is text DaVinci 3, which is based on GPT 3.5. And then we say the prompt, which is say this to the text. And these are some parameters, which is temperature and token number. So let's go ahead and copy this and paste it in. So this is more of a debugging issue. It looks like there are some issues running this on Windows, so we're going to switch over to a Linux-based operating system. So now we're in our Mac OS-based operating system, which is based on Unix, and we have our environment set up very similarly. We are on the OpenAI API page, and we're going to take the command and paste it into our terminal. And you can see here that the output is printed out based on the input prompt. And something that we can do here is interesting is looking at the model. We can actually change a lot of the parameters. So let's go to the model page on the left, and you can see the models are available for us right now. The most advanced model is currently GPT-4, which is in beta. So if we were to paste it in, then we wouldn't be able to use it. And something else that's interesting here is the number of tokens. So the number of tokens are the number of outputs. So the higher the amount of tokens, the larger the output. So you can see here GPT-4 is not available. So let's go ahead and try a different model. And some models don't work on all API versions. Like, for example, GPT 3.5 won't work with completion. However, it will work with chat, and it gives us an error message. So let's go ahead and change it back to DaVinci and try a different version of DaVinci here. So we're going to paste in DaVinci 2 for the model, and we're going to see the differences in output. So you can see like it differs greatly from DaVinci 3. And this is something that will continue to grow as more models get introduced on the market. Now we're going to see how we can use ChatGPT's new code interpreter feature, which is part of GPT-4, to analyze and process large data sets in the form of CSVs. So if you haven't done so already, go to chat.openai.com, and you should be presented with a page like this. This is the main ChatGPT homepage, and we're going to get started from here. So Code Interpreter is a new feature that's in beta with GPT-4 that lets you upload files and chat with it as if you're chatting with a human, and GPT-4 will write code to process and analyze the data to give you answers based on your queries. So this is part of the GPT-4 suite, and we can see it when we hover over GPT-4. There's a new Code Interpreter feature. If you don't see this already, go to Settings on the bottom left, click on the 3 arrows, click on Settings in Beta, go to Beta Features, and enable Code Interpreter. You can also enable plugins, which is on the same screen. And once you have that enabled, you can go to Code Interpreter, hover over it, and click Code Interpreter Beta. So now that you're in Code Interpreter Beta, you should be presented with a screen that looks like this. And the only difference between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 is this little plus button. This little plus button is the upload file, and you can upload a file to chat with. And in this case, I already have a CSV ready, which is a data set of 2010 census data of the United States by population and zip code. And I'm going to go ahead and start writing with my first prompt. And my first prompt is going to tell it what this data set is and what we might be trying to get out of it. So I'm going to write a prompt. This is a census data set of the USA by population and zip code. And we are going to find insights from this data set. And now that I've sent it, it's going to respond. And this is the first priming message to get it ready to process this information. It already started doing work because I said we're going to try to find insights from this data set. And now the new feature with the code interpreter is this new UI that lets you click and see the work that the ChatGPT is doing to process this data. So in this case is writing Python code, and this is similar to a Jupyter notebook, which is a Python notebook that lets you run code in live processing a set of data. And it's really cool because you can actually copy this code and put it into a pandas, a Jupyter notebook, and run the code side by side to see if it works. So just as an example, I have a Jupyter notebook here, and we can run it side by side just to see what the code does. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it in, and I'm going to change the directory because the directory is not quite the same. And by running it, we should actually get the same output as the ChatGPT file. So we can see here, the output is exactly the same. And this gives us a way of debugging and confirming that the work done by the chatbot is correct. So we can do another check on this data to make sure that it's all running correctly. And you can see here that all this data looks correct. And now it gave us some high-level information about the data set, which is the first step a data analyst might do to understand this information to draw insights. It took the count, the mean population, the standard deviation, the min population, the max population. This is great. Now let's keep moving and try to find some more insights from this data. So let's go ahead and start asking us some questions. Maybe I want to find information about New York City and its population. So this is something that you might ask a data analyst or somebody to write a query for. This case, you're using ChatGPT's code interpreter to write the query for you, and ChatGPT acts as a data analyst. So let's go ahead and ask, what is the total population of New York State? And the way you query this is very simple. It's very similar to talking to a chatbot. You just ask it the question that you're looking for, and it will attempt to get that information from the data set. So sometimes not everything will work because of the nature of chatbots. Sometimes it won't respond with the correct answer. You would have to finagle with the prompt. So let's try this one more time. What is the total population of New York? And now I'm dropping New York State. Sometimes this will change the answer. So let's see if it does that. So right now it's proposing a solution on how to do that. And it's giving two options. We can use the common zip code ranges or provide additional data. Let's go with option 1. And now it's proposing a solution and it's going to write the code that falls with it. So right now, the solution it proposed is using zip codes between 10,000 and 15,000, which seems like a logical solution because those are commonly associated with New York. And let's see the work that it performs. So we can see here that it writes Python code that we could insert into our Jupyter notebook. And when we run it, we will get the same response as we did from ChatGPT. So this is showing some higher level reasoning and understanding of the question. It generates a response and then takes that response and inserts it into a Jupyter notebook, attempts to run it and gets a response and prints it back out. So let's go ahead and ask it one more question to round out this lecture. But let us find the population of California and compare it. So let's write a compound prompt where we ask two questions. We ask, can you find the population of California and what state has a higher population, New York or California? Now we're asking a compound prompt, and we can see ChatGPT perform the work and is proposing a similar solution of finding the zip codes within the range of California. It's using that based on their knowledge, its knowledge base generated from the LLM model, and it shows the work of calculating the number of people in California, which we can take to the Jupyter notebook and paste it in. And now it is showing a little bit of higher intelligence and taking the cached information from New York and comparing it. So this is an example of using ChatGPT's code interpreter in order to process a simple data set of census data. In this section, let's go over choosing the best LLM out of all the products and chatbots offered on the market. So at the time of recording, this is a snapshot of what is currently offered on the market. We have Bing Chat, aka New Bing, Anthropic's Cloud, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Bard, and Google's generative search experience, which is in beta. Now let's go under the hood and sort of learn more about each individual product. Now, picking the right LLM is as important as writing prompts because different LLMs have an edge in different things. And in this section, we're going to learn more about each of their pros and cons and when to use each one for its specific best use case. So Bing Chat, aka New Bing, is based on a lightweight version of GPT-4, which is built by OpenAI due to their partnership, and it integrates with Bing Search and summarizes results into a single bubble. Anthropic's Cloud is an LLM-based chat built by Anthropic, which was invested in by Google. ChatGPT is an LLM-based chat built by OpenAI, which was invested in by Microsoft, and offers two models, GPT 3.5, which is publicly available and offered free, and GPT-4, which is meant for premium subscribers. The con is that training stops at the end of 2021, so if you ask more up-to-date information, it will be stale and you might get wrong information. Bard is an LLM-based chat built by Google. It is based on PaLM models, is more restrictive than other ones because of their partnerships and not wanting to say the wrong thing due to Google being such a large company. And Google's search experience, which is in beta, is built on PaLM and integrates with Google Search and summarizes results into a single chat bubble. So let's go over Bing Chat. First, Bing Chat looks like this. It's good for current events and new information. The main advantage over ChatGPT is that it provides more up-to-date information since it browses the web, which is not offered for free via ChatGPT. It's good for performing research since it has up-to-date information and is free to use. However, the cons is that it's only usable on Microsoft browsers, so you have to completely shift over to a new paradigm, which not everybody wants to do. The next one is Google Search Experience, which looks like this. It's currently in beta at the time of recording. However, it won't be likely in the future. And it's good for performing research on current events and new products since it searches the web to get up-to-date information. It's good for research and it's free to use. However, currently it's in beta, so it's not openly available and it could not be available in the future. This experiment is unsure whether it's going to get launched fully, so we shall see if Google Search Experience reaches the broad market. However, the UI is very similar to the regular Google search, and you can see the snippet that it composes based on the search results here. So you can tell that it's very good for performing research since it compresses the entire page results into a single bubble, so it saves you time. ChatGPT is free to use. It looks like this, and it provides conversational responses and are benchmarked to be better than other LLMs. However, this gap is widely closing at the time of recording. The cons are its knowledge is capped at 2021. So unless you pay money for Plus subscription that lets you browse the web, the knowledge might cap at 2021 and you might actually get incorrect results for current events based on old information. And this can be extremely annoying and actually damage you, because you might have like incorrect information that you missed, because you didn't proofread or you didn't double check the work provided by the LLM. Many of the features require a subscription to use, and this costs $20 a month, which might not be feasible for everybody. Google Bard looks like this, and the pros are it gets up-to-date information through Google search for free. So this is the advanced feature in ChatGPT's OpenAI that Bard does completely for free. As multimodal search with integration with Google Images and Google Lens and more, Multimodal means it integrates other forms of input, not just text like images and voice, and combines it into a search. Therefore, Bard is able to get images and is also able to recognize images through this multimodal search. And it exports to Gmail and Docs, which is a nice feature if you're on the Google platform. You can export a response directly to Gmail and send it. You can export a response directly to Docs and start working with it. And it's completely free to use. The cons is that it can be more restricted than other LLMs because of their partnerships, and some queries may not work, which can be annoying. Cloud is a LLM that built by Anthropic that was invested in by Google. The pros is that it's a very feature-rich LLM, probably rivaling OpenAI's ChatGPT plus. The cons is that it's probably the least popular big LLM, so it has less documentation, less of a following, therefore it might be harder to get support. It kind of looks like this. It's very simple. It's very standard chatbot UI, and it's able to do advanced features like PDF search. When to use each one. Let's say you need to get up-to-date information on the subject. Use Bing Chat, Bard, and Google Search Experience because they provide up-to-date information for free, and they're able to browse the web through an API to a search engine. Let's say you need to do some copywriting and being up to date is not important, then use ChatGPT, Cloud, or Bard because all three of them are good for generating content. However, they are ChatGPT isn't up to date, therefore it can be allowed to be grouped in this grouping. Cloud is also not up to date at the time of recording, so Cloud is also in this category. Let's say you need to do some copywriting and being up to date is important. The only one right now that's good for that is Bard or ChatGPT Plus, but that one isn't included because it's not free. However, if you're subscribed to an OpenAI Plus subscription, then ChatGPT could also be used. And let's say I need to perform advanced features like chatting with the PDF. The only one that can do this for free is Cloud. You can do this with ChatGPT Premium, but that costs money, so it's not included in this list. However, if you do have the premium subscription, you can also include it in this list. So that's a very high level and learning about the in-depth under the hood workings of each one to understand which one is best for each conversation or each use case. So let's move on to the next section. Now let's talk about what is an AI agent in the How to Use AI course. So what are AI agents? AI agents are software programs that interact with the environment, collect data, and use the data to perform self-determined tasks to achieve predetermined goals. Typically, a flow is you provide an AI agent with a goal, and an AI agent will work towards accomplishing that goal. The inner workings of how it does it might be a black box. Typically, this involves more than one AI model. It involves multiple AI models working together, which we'll cover more in another slide. So there is an image of a sample AI agent workflow. The main important parts are you have a model for generating new tasks. You have a model that generates task priorities. And then you have an execution agent, which does most of the operating. Notice that these are three different agents. You can use multiple different LLMs together. So like, for example, you can use GPT-4 with Claude with Gemini. All three of these can work together. You can play on the strengths of each one. And they all work together by creating separate workflows for the other AI agents to operate on. So another important detail is that there is some form of long-term memory, and memory in this case would be a vector database, and there is a queue for handling new tasks. So the initial task is provided by the user, which is the predetermined goal, and then the task prioritization agent takes it and then breaks it apart into new tasks. And then the execution agent acts on those tasks and operates within the memory space. So this way, the user will get a final product after going through a workflow of LLMs. So the benefits of using an AI agent are improved productivity. They save time on tasks that humans would have otherwise had to do. They are cheaper than humans since you're only paying for compute costs. And they also help with errors that human beings might cause, like incorrect data, or business efficiencies, or manual tax processes that can be automated. This way it would reduce costs towards the business, and it's a strong benefit of using AI agents. There are improved customer experiences since they scale much better than humans do, and they allow businesses to create personalized experiences for customers that seek them. These are things like personalized messaging bots, personalized web pages built for them, as well as personalized recommendations and shopping experiences that might be tailored towards their preferences. They also allow for more informed decision-making because there are AI agents like data discovery agents, which crawl the open web and use its LLM or ML processing in order to extract relevant information from that and surface it for the end user. So they can help decision makers make better decisions because they are crawling the web on behalf of the decision maker. So there are many different types of AI agents. There are reflex agents, which are agents that are just built on predetermined rules. These are the simplest form of agents because you can only create actions based on the predetermined rule set, and you'll have to go in and make these changes in these rules yourself. So these are the least scalable types of agents. The next are model-based reflex agents. They're similar to reflex agents, however, they use an ML model to make the decisions. So these go through some higher level reasoning, and they are more adaptable than a simple reflex agent. There's goal-based agents that help the user reach a predetermined goal, which they have defined. They're similar to the agents defined in the first task, in the first slide, and they break a task into subtasks and then work for the user in order to get a maximum reward. And a maximum reward in this case can be something like reduce flight time if it's a travel booking agent, saving money if it's a shopping agent. There are many different types of reward, and reward here doesn't always mean monetary because reward is just a goal setting function within the agent architecture. There are hierarchy agents, which are similar to task prioritization agents. They break apart a task and then assign it to different agents based on the tier that they operate. So, for example, there might be lower level agents that all they do is browse the open web. There might be medium tier agents that decide whether a piece of information is relevant or not. Hierarchy agents sort of oversee the entire agent hierarchy and manage which agent does which task. And then there are learning agents that learn from previous experiences and new metadata. And then they also create tasks to test their knowledge. These are agents that are sort of crawling the open web and getting information in order to make more informed decisions. These are the decision makers within the autonomous agent workflow, and they can be used with other agents together in order to make a autonomous AI workflow. So, for example, you could have multiple model-based agents which are acting in acting or reacting to certain tasks. You can have hierarchy agents that are assigning different model-based agents for certain tasks based on their strengths and weaknesses. You could have learning agents that are always crawling the open web to get new information and improve the decision-making of your autonomous workflow. And all of these can be part of some sort of customer service workflow or some sort of chatbot to cater towards personalizing the user experience. So that's just one example of how these agents can be used together. So a basic architecture might look something like this. This is similar to the first slide, just oriented in a different way and using different symbols. Things that are important to note are that AI agents are not always a single model. They could be multiple models chained together and assign various tasks. And in a way, they pass notes between each other and use a single data store like a vector store to store already gathered information to query. This is very important because with LLMs especially, they have a knowledge cutoff. So you always need to do some sort of retrieval augmented generation, which we covered in a previous lecture, in order to supplement that knowledge for them to answer queries successfully. So having a data store like a vector store is extremely important to quickly resurface information in order for them to operate correctly. So as seen in the image to the right, if a question comes in, like in the sample architecture, it can go through a first model that refines the question, gets some context on the user in order to make the question more relevant for them, then passes it to both an aggregation agent as well as a selector agent. The selector agent interacts with the database and passes it to summarization agents that query each database to get relevant information, and then passes all of that to a summarization agent that creates a summary and then creates a response. So all of this is sort of happening behind the scenes in this chat response autonomous agent bot. However, you can see here that they're not working independently. They're actually 3 different models. Some considerations when building these AI agents is that each agent has different strengths, and they require building an overarching agent workflow requires different levels of expertise. There are skills that are required, like understanding data retrieval, database performance, or latency considerations, because each LLM requires more latency. So querying multiple LLMs might get extremely slow, and users won't always wait forever. So you don't want to minimize the latency with that. And since there's multiple pieces of dependencies working together, you want to handle failure mitigation. For example, in the previous slide, if the question refiner agent goes down, there's no way for the agent workflow to begin. So you need to create some sort of redundancy or some sort of fallback system in order for a system like this to be very robust and handle multiple different workflows. Agents are also incredibly compute intensive because they involve operating more than one model, and in addition, data stores. So typically you need to always consider the CPU costs and whether it's costly to operate an AI agent. That covers our section on AI agents. Let's move on to the next one. Now let's look at a case study of how BuzzFeed uses ChatGPT in order to enhance their website by creating content on the fly. And this is a collaboration between BuzzFeed and ChatGPT, and they have a quiz format that gets turned into unique responses based on you. It uses the chatbot to take the prompt that's generated via the quiz and then return a unique answer for you. So let's go ahead and click through one just to see what it looks like. So I'm clicking on the quiz. If your kids are off from school right now, here's the AI quiz to generate fun activities for them. It is created by Buzzy the Robot, which is the chatbot, and then it's curated by a BuzzFeed staff member. So let's go ahead and get started. Enter as many ages as relevant. How old are your kids? Let's say they are 14. How many kids are you planning for? 5. Let's say they like being at home. Where are you based? I'm going to say New York. And then what is the amount you're willing to spend on activity? 200. How long do you want these activities to last? 30 minutes to an hour and 1 to 3 hours. Is there anything your children hate doing? They hate long walks. And then how do you want the activity to be for you? Do you want it to be relaxing? Let's make it relaxing. Are you willing to drive? Yes. And how many suggestions are you looking for Buzzy to provide you? Let's say 3 to 5, and then you click I'm done. And now Buzzy is providing the answers. So how does BuzzFeed do this? They are taking the responses from the quiz and creating a prompt out of it. And then when the prompt is built based on your responses, they send it to the ChatGPT API in order to get a few ideas. So here are some ideas that are generated. The movie night at home with popcorn and cozy blankets, indoor spa session. These are some good ideas. There's DIY crafts, which is definitely in my budget, board game tournament, etc., etc. So we can retake this and start over and change our responses. But behind the scenes, how this works is they take each question and then put it into a prompt. The prompt might look something like this. Let's start with the basics. How old are your kids? When you say 14, it creates a prompt that says, my kids are 14. And I'm looking for things to do with them since they're off school. And then for the question, how many children are you planning the activity for? You say an answer, and then it converts that into a prompt. I'm looking to plan for my 5 children. Do you want the activity to be at home or indoors? When you say at home, you say, I want the activity to be at home. And then once you create this prompt, then it just takes it and then sends it to the ChatGPT API in its raw form and then responds with all the options that the chatbot presents. So that's how BuzzFeed uses the ChatGPT API to generate content on the fly on their website. OpenAI recently released an update to ChatGPT that allows you to create your own GPT. What this means is that you can build a custom chatbot on top of ChatGPT using their API and their baseline model, and you can update this GPT with your own instructions as well as your own data set. This is very powerful because previously, when you created your own custom GPT using custom instructions, this was only usable by you. However, now you can upload these custom instructions as well as your own data to ChatGPT. They will host it for you and then let you create a chatbot that you can share with your friends or your organization. Some ideas to get started are this GPT can be used to create chatbots that personify famous people or certain writing styles, such as authors, actors, and inspirational speakers. It can also be used for a specific purpose using data that's not readily available. For example, you can create a customer service bot using internal customer and company data. So let's go ahead and get started. And you can get here by going to chat.openai.com or chatgpt.com. And this is a plus feature only, so you will have to have the premium subscription of ChatGPT in order to create your own GPT. And if you have it, feel free to follow along. Otherwise, you can watch the video and understand how to do it from a high level. So let's go ahead and click Explore on the left-hand side, and you can go ahead and create a GPT here. So when you're creating a GPT, you're presented with the GPT Builder tool. This is a plain text way of interacting with the GPT Builder and talking to it in order to build your GPT. So in this example, we're going to create a GPT that is a calorie counter. And let's go ahead and create this. I am creating a GPT that is used to provide calorie information and help me with my nutritional goals. So the first prompt we should talk about is providing the direction for the GPT. And what the GPT Builder will do is help us configure the GPT based on our directions and also create images for us to help us create this GPT. So the first response is it provides a name, and let's say we like this name, NutriGuide. I kind of think it sounds a little bit weird, so let's go ahead and ask it to include calorie in the name. Calorie MVP. So let's go ahead and send it, and now it is going to update the GPT using my request and provide me a new name. Calorie Companion sounds pretty good, so let's go with that. And now that I have Calorie Companion, it will create an image that will be used for this GPT. And now it will use that image to brand and personify this custom chatbot. So you can see here that it is creating all of the information for us. It is creating the name, the description, and the instructions. It also creates some conversational starters, which are used to incite the user to start with the conversation. So let's go ahead and go back. So it creates a profile picture and already automatically sets it for us. Let's say we want something a little bit more minimalistic. So let's go ahead and ask it to update it. And now we can see we're just talking to the GPT in plain English, and it's able to update and do all the instructions for us. This is using the underlying model to convert our text into commands and interact with the ChatGPT API on our behalf. So now you can see that this is a lot more similar to what I envisioned. So we can go ahead and confirm this. That looks good. And we can proceed and go through the conversation and build our chatbot this way. Another thing that we can do with this is we can update the instructions or the user prompts that are presented when a user enters. And we can do something called perspective prompting here, where we ask it to think from a certain perspective and provide conversation starters based on that. So I'm going to say, imagine that the user is a person who doesn't have a lot of context and knowledge about nutrition. Provide some conversation starters that get to know the user and ask them their nutritional goals. Make sure one of them is talking about a key feature, which is uploading a picture of food and getting the calorie information. So here we're talking and using one of the new features of ChatGPT Plus, which is the GPT Vision. And it allows us to, let's try this prompt one more time. And it allows us to upload a picture and prompt based on that picture. So now we want to make sure we include this, but we also provide perspective saying the user that's coming into this GPT doesn't have a lot of experience about nutrition. So we want to guide them through the process very easily. So let's go ahead and write that. And now it is going to update our GPT and it is going to update all of our user prompts. So let's go ahead and see what they are doing. First, it's going to provide context, and then it's going to update the GPT. The updating command is a little slow because it still has to create another GPT call in order to call the API on the backend in order to update the data on the model. So let's go ahead and see what it's going to do. Now it updated all of our beginning prompts, and you can see that they are more beginner friendly. Now the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to configure and we're going to upload knowledge. So this knowledge is a foundation where GPT can reference in order to pull data. I'm uploading a spreadsheet about food, and this contains the food calorie count as well as other information about it, such as the name. And this is giving something that GPT can reference in order to get its data about certain nutrition. I am also going to show you that there are ways of importing actions. GPT actions are ways of interacting with external APIs. You need to provide an OpenAI schema here, which is a mapping of information, typically in a JSON format that lets GPT interact with other APIs. APIs are application programmable interfaces and are the front end for accessing code through a robot call. So let's go back. We don't need that now. We can see our food is updated. So let's go ahead and save. And I'm going to save it for me only first. And I'm going to let people with a link access it. So we can update this to public later. On a later date, they will be uploading, they will be allowing everybody to access these GPTs using, through a GPT store. So in the future, if they are public, then you will be able to share these with other people. So, let's go ahead and test Calorie Companion and let's ask it, what are your main nutritional goals? Can you share your typical daily diet? So I'm going to start the conversation with, I'm trying to stay under 2,200 or calories in a day. 2,200 pounds, it is a lot. That person will be very overweight. So, let's go ahead and say I'm trying to stay under 2,200 calories a day, and it will give me information about it. And let's say we want to use the feature of uploading a picture. Well, first, I want to ask it about a meal that I ate today. I'm going to say I ate a chicken sandwich. There was whole wheat bread and mayonnaise on it. Fixed spelling. it was around 7 inches. How many calories did I eat for that meal? So you can see here, this is catering toward calorie count, and it is going to access the underlying data that we provided in order to do this analysis. So we can also upload an image which showcases all of the different abilities of this GPT as well as all the new abilities of ChatGPT. So let's go ahead and upload an image to show the abilities of this GPT that we just created. So you can already see that this is a very powerful tool and there are a lot of things you can do with it. So let's go ahead and ask it, can you estimate the number of calories in this scale? So once this is done, we can conclude our section about creating a GPT. And if you want to make edits to the GPT, it's very easy to, all you have to do is go to the Explore page again, and you can make edits to the underlying model and the underlying configuration. So you can see here, it analyzed the picture and then it's breaking down the ingredients based on what it sees. So when it doesn't have access to a specific ingredient or is not entirely sure, it can access the data that we provide to it. So this is where this GPT is unique. It is a fine-tuned version of it that is created in a very simple way. And you can go to the top right and share it with your friends, share the conversation with your friends, and you can also go back to the Explore page, go to Edit for the GPT, and change the configuration and upload new data that you might want to share. If you don't want to use the conversation data to and share with ChatGPT and OpenAI, if you want this conversation to be private, then you can disable the additional settings check. You can also disable certain features here, such as web browsing, image generation, code interpreter. Code interpreter analyzes the underlying data. So if you turn it on and off, it will change its ability to analyze the knowledge base. So with that, you just have to hit update, and you're done creating GPTs, and you can create as many as you would like and share them with all your friends. So this concludes the section of GPT Builder. Let's move on to the next section. Let's continue and show how some of the new features within Bard work. And I have a Bard UI screen on my computer right now. I zoomed in around 50% to make it easier to present to you. And we're going to walk through some of the new features and show you how they work and how you might apply them to your content creation and using your AI effectively. So the first feature is a new AI model. It's hard to sort of show the AI model because it operates in the back end. You can see under updates that it was updated on December 6th. And we can go ahead and just do some sample prompts just to see the effectiveness of the new model. So let's go ahead and just start with one of these sample prompts. And we can take a look at what the response is just to understand how it might have been improved. So we don't have a solid comparison to the previous PaLM model that Bard was relying on. However, you can see that this response is pretty well documented. It's very structural and has a lot of details about watering orchid. So another question that I enjoy asking is a basic logic problem that tests the smartness of an AI. So I should have it copied in my clipboard. I'm going to go ahead and paste it, and I'm going to ask a question. So the question is a logic problem of 3 people exchanging apples. So Sally has 5 apples, Matt has 10 apples, and John has 7 apples. If Sally gave 3 to John and John ate 2, the question is how many apples does John have now? And the correct answer should be 8. So we're going to go ahead and ask it. And in a common AI, if the AI is not very smart, then it might confuse this question and give an inaccurate answer, especially since it's a logic question with words. However, you can see that Bard now gives a right answer, which is 8, because John originally had 7 apples and it was given 3, and now it he eats 2, so he has 8 apples. And in addition to that, it shows its work, which shows that it is reasoning through this problem logically. And lastly, one other feature of this model is it can now analyze photos. So let's go ahead and upload a photo for it to analyze, and see if I have one on my computer. So we're going to upload a picture of a burrito, and we're going to ask it to describe it. What is in this photo? So here, this shows the multimodal capabilities of Gemini, which is one of the new features, and it can understand photos and describe what is in it, as well as query based on the photos. So you can see here, it understood what this is a burrito sitting on a wooden table, cut in half, and it reveals certain ingredients. So this is a pretty good description, and it is accurate to the photo. So you can see the model is generally performing a lot better. So the next feature that is new is Bard extensions. So Bard has capabilities of integrating with extensions. You can click extensions on the top right to see all of them, and you can query it to get data from all these different sources, such as Google Workspace, YouTube, flights, maps, and hotels. So you can do this really easily by creating a new chat and then typing @ and then picking the query or data source that you want to use. So for Google Flights, you can ask for questions between New York and Paris. So I'm just going to type that in. And then what Bard is doing in the back end is using the new Google Flights data stream and writing this AI query in. And it recommends the flights in a plain text response, and it lets you click into the flights. So this is kind of a replacement for the Google Flights UI. Another thing you can do is ask for hotels. So you can say, I'm planning a trip to Paris and spending 2 nights in Nice. Can you find me affordable hotels under $400? So here it's querying Google Hotels. It basically takes the prompt, it creates a search query and sends it to the Google Hotels API. The Google Hotels API will return the responses and will give you some options based on the API response. You can also click in and do the booking directly. They also provides images. It is basically a different front end for Google Hotels. Now, this is the last feature that new feature that I want to cover for Bard, and this is Check with Google. So this is a good way to performing fact checking on topics that you might not completely know about, or you might be suspicious that the AI is hallucinating. So it's very good for performing research and writing blog posts or any sort of paper that needs to be semi-correct. So let's go ahead and try typing in a prompt. And for example, let's talk about writing a blog post about a certain topic. So let's go back to our example in the previous video and do manual versus automatic watches. So you can write, can you write me a blog post about manual versus automatic watches, and talk specifically about the movements and the batteries. So we can go ahead and ask this query, and then Bard will generate a response. So now there is a new feature that is a Google button on the bottom of the Bard response, and we can use this Google button to actually perform a fact check on the parts of the prompt that contain facts and we aren't totally sure about. So what it basically does is it goes through a Google response, gets all of the search results, and then checks the details of the Bard response and matches things that it has found in the Google search to verify that they are correct. So for example, here it provides a source of where this is coming from and that this is a verified response. And the yellow means that it couldn't find any results of this. So this is something that you might need to double check and act cautiously for. So that covers all of the new features up to 2024 on Bard. There are some more that are harder to show, and they're more like convenience features. These are the major features that will definitely make your life a lot better. At least they have for me. And that covers all the updates for Bard. Let's move on to the next section. In this hands-on example, we're going to go through Notebook LM, a tool provided by Google that allows you to perform create easy RAG models for the documents that you already have. So to access this, go to notebooklm.google.com. And when you go to the homepage, you will be presented with a range of notebooks. So either create a new one or open one that you have already. And what Notebook LM allows you to do is add sources into your notebook, and you can add up to 50 sources and query those sources against a certain set of prompts. So it's about incorporating your knowledge into the tool that you're using, and then it is a custom LLM that is rooted in your actual data. So you can upload up to 50. It can be Google Drive documents, slides, YouTube links, or websites. So for example, if we want to add a YouTube link, let's add this one that just came out, and we're going to go ahead and insert it as a source. So looks like there's an error. The transcript is not available, so let's pick an older video. So let's go ahead and add it in. So that is how you go ahead and add sources. This one is also not available, but anyways, we don't need to necessarily, incorporate them. We already have a few sources, so we can go ahead and try it out. So, if we go into the view chat window, this is asking a query that's very specific to the documents that I have. So, here we can ask specific questions, and we can use this for boosting productivity with data analysis, document analysis, and for example, if we're doing legal analysis, this would be an easy way of incorporating all your sources and making it easy to query those using an LLM. So let's go ahead and ask another question. Tell me about the New Horizons, which is a case study that we imported here. So this will then go into the sources that we have pulled in and tell me more about New Horizons, as well as citing specific pieces of the document in line. That allows us to reference it and know that we are not hallucinating. This is useful because it will make us trust the AI more and know that we are getting an accurate answer. We can ask follow-up questions, like, for example, maybe we want to eye in on the decision point, and then ask it, can you give me the reason why they decided to act that way? And then this will continue to go into the documents and pull out specific information specific to the document and in the notebook that you're querying. So we can ask it, there's some suggested follow-up questions as well. So you got the gist. This is an easy way of investigating certain sources deeper and allows you to utilize LLMs in an interesting way. Another cool thing that you can do with Notebook LM to really boost your productivity is also generate an AI podcast. That is a interesting feature that isn't offered in many other services. So this will generate AI podcasts in a few minutes and allow you to listen to your sources in a way that is very natural and very intuitive. So let's give it a few minutes and return back. So now we're back and we have generated an audio overview of these sources. We can go ahead and listen to it. Welcome back to the deep dive. Ready for takeoff. This time we're exploring the wild world of airlines. Buckle up. We've got case studies, internal documents, even some transcripts from the airlines themselves, behind the scenes stuff, getting into the cockpit, you could say. Exactly. We really want to give you that insider perspective. And who knows, maybe you'll even start thinking like a CEO. So you can see that this is a great way of getting an executive summary out of many sources in a really quick and easy way using AI. This covers the overview of Notebook LM. Let's move on to the next section.